If Darth Vader had retained his full Jedi powers, unhindered by his cybernetic suit and injuries, he would have been far more powerful than in the original timeline. This alternate reality would significantly alter the Star Wars saga. Anakin Skywalker stood before the Jedi Council, his eyes steady, his heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and pride. This was the moment he had long dreamed of, the culmination of years of training, sacrifice, and countless battles fought for the Republic. When Mace Windu's voice rang out, announcing that the Council had decided to grant him the rank of Jedi Master, the air seemed to shift. Anakin felt a surge of validation, as though the chains of doubt that had clung to him for so long had finally broken. The other Council members, including Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi, exchanged measured glances. Yoda's ancient eyes held both wisdom and a quiet caution, sensing that Anakin's path would still be tested in the days to come. Yet the decision was made. Anakin bowed respectfully, concealing the storm of emotions beneath his composed expression. Later, Obi-Wan approached him, his voice calm, yet filled with warmth. He congratulated Anakin, reminding him that the rank of Master was not only an honor, but also a burden that required humility, patience, and balance in the Force. Anakin listened, but deep inside his confidence swelled. For the first time, he felt truly recognized, not as the Council's reluctant prodigy, but as their equal. Padme Amidala received the news with joy. In a quiet moment on the balcony overlooking Coruscant's shimmering cityscape, she placed her hand on his, telling him how proud she was. Yet beneath her smile, she sensed his growing ambition. That night, as the city lights stretched endlessly into the horizon, Anakin gazed out in silence. The future felt closer than ever, within reach, his destiny no longer bound by the limitations others had set for him. But somewhere in the Force, an unseen current stirred, whispers of choices yet to be made, and shadows waiting to test the strength of even a Jedi Master. The galaxy was on the brink of change, and Anakin Skywalker now stood at its very center. Every step he took from this moment would shape not only his fate, but the fate of all who lived under the light or the darkness of the Force. In the days following his promotion, Anakin Skywalker walked through the halls of the Jedi Temple with a new presence. Younglings looked up to him with admiration, knights nodded in respect, and even seasoned masters treated him as an equal. Yet behind the formal courtesies, there were murmurs. Some wondered if Anakin's rapid rise would unsettle the balance within the order. Yoda observed him quietly during council meetings, his mind dwelling on the boy he had once doubted, now a man of immense influence. Mace Windu remained cautious, watching for signs that the young master's ambitions might outpace his wisdom. Anakin felt these unspoken tensions, but he chose to ignore them, focusing instead on his growing responsibilities. Obi-Wan Kenobi noticed the change in his former Padawan. Their conversations carried a different weight now. Obi-Wan offered guidance not as a superior, but as a friend and fellow master. In moments between missions, they spoke of the war, of the future of the Jedi, and of how the galaxy might be rebuilt once the conflict with the Separatists ended. When Anakin was summoned to the Chancellor's office, Palpatine welcomed him warmly, his tone dripping with pride. He congratulated Anakin on his well-deserved promotion, praising his skills and valor. Yet Palpatine's words were carefully chosen, feeding the young Jedi's confidence while planting subtle seeds of distrust toward the Council. Anakin listened with polite restraint, but deep inside, he felt the truth of his own worth more strongly than ever. One evening, Anakin stood alone in the temple archives, gazing at ancient holocrons. The wisdom of centuries surrounded him, but his mind was restless. He thought of the war's chaos, the suffering of innocents, and the corruption creeping into the Republic. He believed that with his new authority, he could bring about lasting peace, if only others would follow his lead. The Force seemed to hum around him, as if recognizing his determination. But in the shadows, it also whispered warnings of choices that could lead him toward a path neither entirely light nor entirely dark. Anakin Skywalker was no longer just the chosen one in prophecy. He was now a Jedi Master with the power to shape the destiny of the galaxy. The war raged on across the galaxy, but Anakin Skywalker's role as a Jedi Master brought him to the very heart of the Republic's most critical decisions. The Council now entrusted him with missions of the highest importance, ones that could determine the outcome of the Clone Wars. His strategies were bold, sometimes unconventional, but they delivered victories that inspired hope among the Republic's citizens and fear among its enemies. During one mission, Anakin led a small strike team deep into Separatist territory. His presence alone was enough to rally his troops, and his mastery of the Force allowed him to anticipate the enemy's moves with uncanny precision. Even battle-hardened clones like Captain Rex remarked that serving under Master Skywalker felt like fighting alongside a living legend. Yet the cost of war weighed heavily on him. In the quiet hours after a battle, Anakin would walk among the wounded, speaking words of comfort and promising that their sacrifices would not be in vain. These moments revealed a compassion that set him apart from many Jedi, and it earned him the loyalty of those who followed him. Back on Coruscant, Palpatine continued to invite Anakin to private meetings. He praised his victories, framing them as proof that the Jedi needed stronger, more decisive leadership. Anakin respected the Chancellor's wisdom, but he also remembered Obi-Wan's warnings about the dangers of political influence. Still, the Chancellor's words lingered in his mind, tempting him with visions of what could be achieved if the galaxy were united under a single, unshakable will. In the temple, some masters noticed his growing influence and debated how best to guide him. Yoda sensed a great storm in the Force, but its true shape remained hidden. To Anakin, the path ahead seemed clear. He believed that his new rank and his unmatched abilities meant he had the responsibility to reshape the galaxy for the better. As night fell over Coruscant, Anakin stood on the temple's high balcony, gazing at the endless sea of lights. The city's hum faded into the background as he reached out with the Force. The galaxy's fate felt close, almost within his grasp, and he was ready to claim it, whatever the cost might be. The Chancellor's office glowed with the warm light of Coruscant's sunset as Anakin Skywalker stepped inside. Palpatine rose from behind his desk, greeting him with the ease of an old friend rather than the formality of a political leader. Their conversations had grown longer and more personal since Anakin's promotion, each one blurring the line between mentorship and persuasion. Palpatine spoke of the Republic's fragility, of the endless war draining its strength, and of the corruption gnawing at its core. He told Anakin that the galaxy needed a leader with vision and the courage to act without hesitation. His words were carefully woven, planting subtle thoughts in Anakin's mind while making them feel like his own ideas. Anakin listened, his expression calm, but his thoughts restless. Part of him agreed with the Chancellor. Change was necessary. The Council often debated too long while lives were being lost. Perhaps the Jedi had grown too rigid, too bound by tradition to adapt to the galaxy's needs. Yet the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi echoed in his memory, reminding him of the dangers of unchecked power. Obi-Wan had always trusted him, even when others doubted. That trust anchored Anakin, keeping him from accepting every word Palpatine spoke without question. When their meeting ended, Palpatine placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder, his voice soft. He told him that he was destined for greatness, that he had the potential to bring true balance to the galaxy, not just to the Force. The praise was intoxicating, stirring a sense of purpose that burned brighter than ever. Later, walking through the temple halls, Anakin found himself looking at the statues of ancient Jedi Masters. Their serene faces seemed distant, their wisdom bound to a different age. He wondered if they would have acted more boldly had they faced the challenges of his time. That night, Anakin stood with Padme Amidala on their balcony, the city lights flickering below. She spoke of hope, of the day when their child could grow up in peace. Anakin held her close, his heart torn between the ideals of the Jedi and the tempting vision of swift, decisive change. Somewhere deep within, the Force stirred, as if aware that the choices ahead would decide the fate of them all. The war pressed on without pause, and Anakin Skywalker's new position as a Jedi Master placed him at the forefront of every critical mission. His victories were swift and decisive, and his name spread across the galaxy like a legend in the making. Worlds under Separatist control fell one after another, their people hailing him as a hero who could not be stopped. Yet within the Jedi Council, there was unease. Some masters feared that Anakin's power, combined with his youth, could make him vulnerable to dangerous temptations. Yoda's gaze often lingered on him during meetings, as if searching for signs of imbalance. Mace Windu kept his tone measured when speaking to him, never revealing the full weight of his suspicions. Obi-Wan Kenobi remained his steady ally, offering advice when Anakin's strategies pushed too close to the edge of tradition. The bond between them had shifted, no longer master and Padawan, but equals. Still, Obi-Wan sensed a restlessness in Anakin, an urgency that seemed to grow with every passing day. During a quiet evening in the temple gardens, Anakin walked among the still ponds and ancient trees. The soft hum of the Force filled the air, and for a moment he felt at peace. But peace never lasted long. His mind returned to visions, brief, haunting flashes of Padme Amidala in distress, her face pale, her breathing labored. Each vision struck him like a cold blade, and each time he told himself he would find a way to prevent it. Palpatine's voice returned to him in memory, whispering that true power could save the ones he loved. The Chancellor's words had taken root, and though Anakin tried to focus on his duties, the thought never truly left him. As the night deepened, the city beyond the temple walls glowed like 1,000 stars brought to the surface. Anakin stood at the edge of the garden, staring toward the Chancellor's tower in the distance. He knew the path ahead would test him more than any battle. The galaxy was in chaos, and the choices he would soon make could bring either lasting peace or an unending shadow. The war reached a fever pitch, and Anakin Skywalker's leadership as a Jedi Master became the Republic's sharpest weapon. Entire fleets moved at his command, and every soldier under his leadership fought with renewed courage, knowing their general could turn the tide of any battle. Victory followed him like a shadow, yet so too did whispers, both from the enemy and within the Jedi Order, that his power was growing beyond what anyone had imagined. During one tense council meeting, reports arrived of Separatist forces gathering near the core worlds. Anakin proposed a daring strike, one that would end the war in weeks instead of months. Some masters hesitated, worried about the risk and the swiftness of his plan, but his conviction left little room for doubt. Even Mace Windu, though reluctant, approved the mission. The operation was a stunning success. Anakin led his forces with precision and fire, dismantling the Separatist command network in a single campaign. When he returned to Coruscant, the people hailed him as the hero who would save the Republic. Crowds filled the streets, and his name echoed across the city like a rallying cry. But within the temple, the celebration was quieter. Yoda warned him that victories, no matter how great, could feed pride, and pride could lead to dangerous choices. Anakin bowed respectfully, but part of him believed the old master's caution was misplaced. He was bringing peace. Wasn't that the Jedi way? Padme Amidala welcomed him home with relief and pride, yet her eyes searched his face for signs of strain. She could sense the weight he carried, though he spoke little of it. He told her only that the war would soon be over, and they could finally live in the peace they both longed for. That night, as the city's lights shimmered beneath the stars, Anakin stood alone, gazing out from the temple's highest balcony. His thoughts were a mix of triumph and determination. The galaxy was within his grasp, and he believed he had the wisdom to guide it. But far beyond the bright skyline, in the unseen currents of the Force, shadows began to move, shadows that would soon test the limits of even a Jedi Master's resolve. The galaxy was shifting, and Anakin Skywalker could feel it in every breath of the Force. As a Jedi Master, his influence reached far beyond the battlefield. Senators sought his counsel, generals deferred to his judgment, and citizens spoke his name as if he were the Republic's last beacon of hope. Yet with every honor came heavier chains of responsibility, and the choices before him grew more complex with each passing day. In one meeting with the Jedi Council, reports surfaced of unrest on key mid-rim worlds. The Separatists had been weakened, but not broken. Anakin offered to go personally, certain that his presence would end the conflict quickly. Mace Windu reminded him that diplomacy often served better than a lightsaber, but Anakin countered that speed was sometimes the greatest mercy. The debate was brief, his argument was convincing, and the council allowed him to proceed. When he arrived, the mere sight of his starfighter caused the enemy to falter. His reputation as an unstoppable force preceded him. In a single day, he dismantled the separatist leadership on the planet and brokered peace with its people. To the soldiers and civilians, it was another miracle from Master Skywalker. But not everyone saw it that way. Yoda watched from afar, sensing that Anakin's victories, while impressive, carried an undercurrent of restlessness. The young master's desire to act swiftly often clashed with the patience the Jedi valued. Later, in the Chancellor's office, Palpatine praised him with genuine admiration, calling him the Republic's greatest protector. His words were like a warm cloak around Anakin's shoulders, but hidden beneath was a subtle weight, a reminder that perhaps the Jedi Council did not value him as much as they should. That night, standing with Padme Amidala on their balcony, Anakin spoke of a galaxy united, free from war and corruption. His voice carried conviction, and Padme listened with hope in her eyes, though part of her feared the cost of such dreams. The wind swept through the city, carrying with it the hum of distant speeders. Anakin looked out over Coruscant's endless lights, feeling the Force swirl around him. Somewhere deep within, a truth was forming, a belief that only he had the strength to shape the galaxy's destiny. The night over Coruscant was calm, but Anakin Skywalker's mind was far from still. His new responsibilities as a Jedi Master had brought him victories and recognition, yet they had also opened doors to truths he had not seen before. The war was not simply a clash between the Republic and the Separatists. It was a web of politics, greed, and hidden agendas. The more he learned, the more he felt the galaxy's fate rested on decisions that few dared to make. Palpatine summoned him once again, his tone friendly but deliberate. He spoke of intelligence reports, suggesting that the Jedi Council was growing divided, that some feared Anakin's influence might overshadow their own. Palpatine's words were laced with concern, framing himself as an ally who understood the burdens of leadership. Anakin listened carefully, though part of him questioned the Chancellor's motives. Still, the idea that the Council might not fully trust him stung deeply. In the temple, Obi-Wan Kenobi noticed the weight Anakin carried. He urged him not to let politics cloud his judgment, reminding him that the Jedi serve the Force first, not any government. Anakin nodded, but inside he felt the struggle between loyalty to the Jedi Code and the belief that he could bring faster, stronger change if he acted beyond its limits. That evening, Padme Amidala found him in quiet thought on their balcony. She could see the tension in his eyes, the way his gaze seemed fixed on something far beyond the city skyline. He told her that the galaxy was on the verge of transformation, and that he had the means to guide it toward peace. Padme's voice was soft, reminding him that peace built through fear could never last. As they stood together under the soft glow of Coruscant's lights, the Force stirred around Anakin, carrying both promise and warning. He felt more certain than ever that his path would define the future, not only for himself, but for everyone who lived under the vast reach of the galaxy's stars. And in that certainty, the first shadows of destiny began to take shape. The sun dipped below Coruscant's skyline, painting the city in gold and crimson light, as Anakin Skywalker walked the halls of the Jedi Temple with quiet determination. The title of Jedi Master had changed more than his rank. It had altered how others looked at him, how they spoke to him, and how they sought his guidance. Yet deep inside, the same questions lingered. Was he doing enough? Was the Council's way truly the best way to serve the galaxy? In the war room, holograms of distant worlds shimmered before him. Reports came in from scattered fronts, each carrying its own story of suffering. Anakin listened to the commander's updates, then gave swift, decisive orders. His strategies were bold, sometimes risky, but the results spoke for themselves. The Council praised his victories, though some, like Mace Windu, still studied him with an unreadable gaze. Later, in private, Obi-Wan Kenobi warned him that great power could lead even the most well-meaning Jedi into dangerous territory. Anakin respected Obi-Wan's wisdom, but he could not ignore the sense that the galaxy's problems required a stronger hand than the Council was willing to use. That night, in the Chancellor's chambers, Palpatine spoke with quiet urgency. He praised Anakin as the Republic's finest defender, hinting that the Jedi were too restrained to end the war swiftly. His words were like threads, weaving into Anakin's mind, planting the idea that perhaps he alone could bring lasting peace. When Anakin returned home, Padme Amidala greeted him with a gentle smile, though she could see the shadows behind his eyes. They spoke of the future, their future, and the child she carried. Anakin promised her a galaxy where their child would never know war. The city hummed around them, the glow of speeders cutting through the night air. Anakin looked out into the vast expanse of lights, feeling the Force swirl with possibilities. Every choice before him seemed to lead toward a single path, a path where he believed only his strength and vision could decide the fate of millions. In that moment, the weight of destiny pressed on his shoulders, and Anakin Skywalker took another step toward the point where light and shadow would meet. The night air over Coruscant was still and heavy, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Anakin Skywalker stood on the high balcony of the Jedi Temple, gazing at the countless lights stretching to the horizon. The title of Jedi Master was his now, but with it came responsibilities and burdens that even he had not fully anticipated. Every decision he made seemed to ripple through the galaxy, touching lives in ways both seen and unseen. Inside the temple, the War Council gathered around the central holodable. Anakin's presence commanded respect. Generals and Jedi alike leaned forward to hear his strategies, plans sharper and faster than any they had heard before. His reputation as the Republic's most decisive leader grew daily, and even Master Yoda offered small nods of approval. But not everyone was convinced. Mace Windu still studied him carefully, as though waiting for proof that Anakin's rise was either the Jedi's greatest hope or their gravest mistake. Away from the council chambers, Anakin walked alongside Obi-Wan Kenobi. His former master spoke softly, urging patience and reminding him that even masters must heed the wisdom of the order. Anakin listened, but his mind wandered to the endless suffering of the war. He could not help but think that more could be done, faster and with less hesitation. In the private, dimly lit office of Chancellor Palpatine, a different voice spoke to him. Palpatine praised his brilliance, his courage, and his ability to see solutions others would never dare consider. With careful words, he painted the Jedi as overly cautious, unable to act with the strength necessary to end the war once and for all. Returning to his quarters, Anakin found Padme Amidala waiting. Her presence softened him, if only for a moment. They spoke quietly of their child and the life they dreamed of, a life without war, without fear. Anakin swore to her that he would make it so, no matter the cost. As he stepped back into the cool night, the Force swirled around him, alive with tension and possibility. Anakin felt the galaxy balanced on a knife's edge, and he knew that his choices in the days ahead would decide whether it would fall into darkness or finally see the dawn.